The years of apartheid are over. A new beginning awaits a new South Africa.
Welcome. My name is Asanda, and this is the Assy channel where we defy all society's norms by keeping it real. So guys, welcome to my third episode of Discussions That Grow the Mind. Today's topic is quite heavy, and I just want to preface before I start that I'm not the most politically inclined individual. I didn't do history in high school, so I'm only now starting to understand the history of the country, the politics, the way in which the country's run, the structures of government, and all of the above. I'm just trying to inform myself as well as I can for the upcoming elections, because I think in doing my research I've realized how important they actually are and how important it is for the youth to actually contribute, because the change that we as the new 18-year-olds, new 19-year-olds, new 20-year-olds can make in the political system is actually crazy. Like we could change the political scope of the country, and I don't think we realize the power that we hold. So hence this video is not me like asserting some type of political dominance, because I don't understand the politics of South Africa fully, but I do feel I know enough that I can share and spark people to start thinking about things. Like the title of the show, it's Discussions That Grow the Mind. We are growing the mind together here. This video is to urge the youth of South Africa to apply to vote. It's free, guys. It literally takes you 10 minutes. So I am a registered voter. You as well should be, and your time is almost up, because by the time the president announces the date, I think the IEC will be closing applications for voters. So please just get onto it. In this video, I'll be going over the importance of the upcoming elections. So in the discussion, you'll see why exactly it is that the 2024 elections are so important, and why people keep comparing it to the 1994 elections, and how vital this year and this year's turnout is in the future of South Africa. Because if things do not change, we are most likely headed for the worst of the worst, because it is bad. The politics of the country affect us, and we are the ones that are going to have to deal with it in the coming 20 to 30 years. When things are looking downwards, we are going to be the ones that have to fix it, because the 80-year-olds and what sitting in parliament now won't be there, So we need to be involved. We need to start informing ourselves. We need to start learning, and it's very much important. So with that said, I'll be going through the importance of the upcoming elections. I don't want to go through the policies of each political party, because we're not going to finish and we're going to be here forever. So I just want to speak about the extremes. Like, what are the things that people fear if a certain party comes into power? These findings are not straight from their political documents. This is from analysis of people on social media that speak on politics. I'll link them below so that you can also check them out and also educate yourself in the best way possible. It is just to give you what the worst of the worst could possibly be if a certain if a certain political party comes into power. So to start off this video, I'll be going through the debate that Mr. Nelson Mandela, former president, the two former presidents of this country, Mr. F.W De Klerk and Mr. Nelson Mandela, they had a debate, and they were discussing the issues about the country and the way forward for South Africa from an apartheid state country. The debate essentially discusses the issues that they were facing at the time, how they wished to progress from the issues that they had. I cut the debate short, just two main points, because it's very long as well, and there's a lot of issues that we're dealing with in South Africa, but I want to focus on, I think, what I find the most important, right? Yeah, we'll also look at the arguments that are made and how if Mr. F.W. De Klerk answers them, because I feel, reflecting now as a person who is present in the 2024 year and looking at the country with the knowledge that I have on South African politics, which is not much, honestly. I'm not very politically inclined in that sense, but I do have a brain and I can see and I can analyze and I can assess what is going on. But he has a point to the things that he was saying, and I feel his predictions are very much right in terms of what he said in this debate in 1994. Those things have happened. The country is in shambles, and he predicted it, guys. He was right. So not to be an apartheid advocate or whatever. I'm black, obviously I can't advocate for such, but we can't dispute the fact that that man was right about where our country would go, and the fact that the policies of the ANC have not gotten us results, and we as a country have not moved forward in this 30 years of being free and having democracy. I'll discuss what happened to the National Party. Well, I don't know the gist of it, but what I do know is that they were dissolved in 2005 and they didn't recover from apartheid, obviously, because they literally freaking oppressed the whole nation. But anyways, South Africa is traumatized. We as the people of South Africa are dealing with a lot. Apartheid was an evil thing, and I think we have not fully recovered from it. I don't think we ever will, but the damage has been done. You know, South Africa is traumatized. Both the black, whites, and colored, Indian, all of us are traumatized, and we have our own issues and our own reservations when it comes to relating with other races. But we generally all want peace, right? But we can't have peace and move forward if the atrocities, the what is that word? The wealth essentially is not shared equally amongst people, because apartheid obviously prioritized the minority, whereas now the minority has the wealth of the country, and that has not been addressed for 30 years into our freedom, right? So I'll play a video just to show that South Africans are indeed insecure, including the white South Africans of this country.
The electorate in South Africa are deeply concerned about a number of issues. Our people are concerned about their jobs, about their prosperity. They are concerned, deeply concerned, about the social services and the lack of it. And they are concerned about violence. If you vote for the new National Party, you will enable me to continue with my task to bring conciliation, reconciliation, and thus peace and prosperity to our country and all its people.
I think as well that all the different races are insecure about different things. You know, the whites are afraid that, you know, with the reign of, let's say, the EFF, that they will be hunted down. There's already this narrative of black people wanting to kill white South Africans, specifically farmers, with the whole story of the Kill the Boer song, and just that whole narrative of black people wanting revenge for apartheid. They are afraid that their well-being and their security in South Africa will be compromised, because they know the things that they did as a race is very bad, and they are fearful that once South Africans, black South Africans, get power, we will come back and say, yeah, you did this, and therefore this is what you get, you know? Whereas the black South Africans want peace, and they don't ever want to be put into a position where we are the victims of political violence, apartheid again, you know? But this time can happen under the carpet, you know, and it can be made up as unity, but there are still underlying apartheid regime-ish feelings, you know. So black people are insecure that white people want to implement that again and essentially oppress South Africans economically. There are just disparities between races that are considered blacks. Like if you look at the condition of colored people, and their argument towards black South Africans is that black South Africans don't care about coloreds. And I feel like these arguments are all fair because we're all traumatized. Like we're all dealing with different things. We have to find a way to move forward. And I think these problems are all rooted from the divide and conquer. The apartheid regime did very well, and it is still striving today because the divide and conquer has won. We are divided, we have different goals, we have different things that we want for the country, and the politics of this country reflect that. However, we need to find a way to move forward even with those differences, and find a way to move forward to make South Africa better for everyone. So I'll play a video of the ANC policy, Mr. Mandela describing the ANC policy and what it looks like for South Africans in the future, which is us now, and what their plans were back then.
We have got a plan to build a better life for all South Africans. And a better life means houses, jobs, free quality education, hospital services. We believe that these are realizable.
So after watching that video, you can see like it's the same thing we hear today. All these things, obviously, that an ideal society would have. ANC has sold us a dream that they have not been able to make come true. The issue now is deciding whether this dream has not come true. Is it because of the implementation of it? So the policy is right, but the implementation of the policy is the one that's flawed, or is the policy completely wrong? We don't know. However, Mr. F.W. De Klerk has said that the problem with the ANC's policy is the policy itself. So I'll play the video.
We also promise houses, we also promise better education, better health facilities, and more jobs. The real test is, who has a plan which can achieve it? And I say that the National Party has a plan which can work, because we can only achieve that if we have dynamic economic growth. And we can only have dynamic economic growth if we get investments. And we'll only get investments and new factories being built and increased economic activity if we follow economic policies which are in step with our policy, because our policy is in step with the economic policies which have succeeded across this world. The ANC's policy is riddled with that which has failed. It is riddled still with clinging to nationalization. You won't get investments as long as that is the case. The ANC continues to talk about stronger government intervention and more centralist control. Those economic policies will not succeed in generating the wealth which we need. The ANC's plan is going to cost much more than they indicate.
So now this poses the question, right? Is the ANC policy wrong and flawed, or is it just the implementation of it with the corruption that happens within that party? Are we supposed to now do a whole 360 and change policies and follow, you know, the plans that Mr. F.W. De Klerk would have implemented had he come into power? The questions you need to ask yourself as a voter who will be voting in the 2024 elections is if nationalization is the answer for our country. Should the vital services that need to be provided by the South African government, should they be nationalized or should they be privatized? Depending on your personal answer for this question, you can decide which party you want to go for. is capitalism good for the minority, or should we go the communistic route? Should we go for nationalization? What do you personally feel will work for this country? You know, and Mr. F.W. De Klerk makes the point to say that the difference between the black and the white is that the white have experience in running a country and managing budgets, as they did that in the apartheid regime. Now the argument is to say that he said in his video that he feels he needs to be present in managing those budgets to ensure that the discipline is managed, because he has experience in managing big funds of money and allocating money to government departments and making sure that that money goes a long way. However, Mr. Nelson Mandela's objection to that point is that he, in his running of the National Party, he essentially, those funds were going to the minority, and the way in which the country was run back then, a lot of people like to make the argument that during apartheid, the country was run properly. There was efficiency, there was, things were ran accordingly. However, the argument is to say that it was run accordingly for the minority, whereas millions of black South Africans were impoverished. They didn't have electricity, they didn't have food, they didn't have jobs, and the argument is to say, can they actually manage South Africa as a whole and make sure that everyone is okay in the same way that they ensured that the minority was okay. I don't know if you hear my point here, but that's the argument.
I am doing that, unlike the National Party government, which has attempted to pay large sums to the Director Generals when there are 5 million people unemployed, when there are 7 million people without housing. We are not going to live like fat cats. My friends in the National Party can do that. That's what they know.
If we want to be in step and attract foreign investment and be sure of the support of the IMF and the World Bank, we will have to continue in South Africa to maintain strict fiscal and financial discipline. This is what the government has been doing. By doing it, and by taking other steps, we've brought down the inflation rate to single-digit figures, and soon it might be 7%. We've brought down interest rates. All our economic indicators are pointing in the right direction. I'm very glad to hear that in the government of national unity, I will have the support of Mr. Mandela in being frugal with regard to government expenses.
So as a country, we obviously still face major issues in terms of housing, in terms of wealth distribution, land distribution, education, jobs. There's a lot of problems that we're still facing in this country, which was still being faced in 1994. And we are 30 years into the democracy and we are still facing those same problems. Some of those problems have become progressively worse and are still becoming worse, right? And the issue now, the importance of these upcoming elections is that we as a country are reflecting now. We're saying, it's been a while, ANC. It's been a while, and we are looking back and we're seeing that there has not been much progress. As much as we are free, and I as a black person no longer have to carry a passport. No longer. I've never had to do it. I'm a born free. I've never had to go through the reality that apartheid had for black people. But we are reflecting and we're saying, okay, we've given you the chance to implement this dream that you have sold to us. And after all these years, the dream has not come true. Now these elections will honestly be a reflection of how tired the country is of not having properly functioning systems and not having, just empty promises that are consistently promised but no action being implemented, and things just getting progressively worse. So now we have to pick a party that can maybe bring these dreams to life. Now we have the opportunity to pick another party and have them try to put their policies into action and make them reality. So now we will discuss the fears that people have about each and every single party in the analysis of other people that are more politically informed. These are the things that they fear after reading the policies of these different parties and looking at the track record of all of these different parties. These are the fears that the people of South Africa have for the different parties. So starting off with the DA, essentially they fear that the National Party supporters, which was dissolved in 2005. Obviously, the National Party dissolved, however, the supporters still have their value. So just because the party that was in charge of Apartheid has dissolved doesn't mean the people who supported that party are gone. So now people are fearing that the past supporters of the National Party are now using the DA to implement their own mandate and Apartheid agendas. This is not to say that the DA is racist or whatever. I don't know. I am not in politics. However, people fear that that is what is happening. People are also fearful that the DA won't redress the disparities that were caused by Apartheid. The disparities regarding inequality, the distribution of wealth, the land. And the land issue is pretty bad, guys. Like, I don't know if people don't know, but the population of South Africa is 81% black people. Out of 81% of the population is black, but 4% of the land is owned by black people, which is a huge, doesn't make sense. How can 81% of a nation only own 4% of the land? It's crazy. Whereas 8% of the nation owns 72% of the land. It is bad, and people don't understand how bad it is. That is the fear that people have about the DA, that they won't redress these problems and they will just try to move forward as if we are equal, whereas we are not equal. Very clearly not equal, because everyone knows, even the international countries, South Africa is the most economically, our difference between the brokest broke man and the richest rich man is the biggest gap in the whole world, because the top 1% owns almost all of our economy. So, people are fearful that the DA won't be addressing this. And the thing that makes people fearful of this is that in the policy they state that they want to help people help themselves out of poverty, which is sus. I won't lie to you. How? We didn't put ourselves in poverty. We didn't say, hey, I want to be impoverished and broke and I don't want to have a home and electricity and whatnot. They were put into those circumstances by the Apartheid regime. So now, by saying that you will help people help themselves using capitalism, it's not fair, because capitalism in a country where majority is in poverty, it won't help. It literally won't help. Now, moving on to the EFF. The fear that people have about the EFF is that They are after the white people of this country. So that is the fear. They are fearful of a white genocide. There was a scandal with the song. The song is Kill the Boer. And there was an uproar on Twitter. There was an uproar in the country about perpetuating white genocide, as well as the narrative that Black South Africans are after white farmers, and that Black South Africans are starting a white genocide. So the fear is that the EFF will be the head of this movement, of the Kill the Boer narrative. And after watching Dan Corder's videos, he essentially, this narrative is debunked. It's not true. Well, as of now, it might not be true. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not the guy for politics. I'm just listening to experts. However, the fear is that there'll be white genocide, that the South African economy will collapse. So essentially, the EFF wants to be focused on nationalizing the services that run the country. So they don't want private ownership. They don't agree with the country being run, the important factors of government being run privately. They want to nationalize as much things as they can, right? However, people are fearful that in the nationalization of important things, it'll only result in a worsening of the country's state, because the government has proven themselves that we cannot trust them to run important factors of government.
I'll tell you why you don't nationalize.
No, seriously, answer me like you would for people who think that that's a great idea.
You see, government is not a meritocratic institution. If it was, the Department of Home Affairs would have awards every year for the best performing clerk. They don't have them because they don't measure the performance of clerks at Home Affairs. The structure of government is not built for meritocracy. It's not built for remuneration based on performance. So the reason you don't take institutions that need to perform and give them to the government is because you're going to flog them with a management system that doesn't require of them to perform. This is why the minute you give anything to the state, they mismanage it. It's not because they wake up this morning going, how can I mismanage this thing? It's because there is no incentive built into the system to perform. Now, in the private markets, there is an incentive. It's called survival. You don't perform, you die. That's the way it works, right? And there is a limitation to how much capital you can raise and constantly underperform. Sooner or later, they're going to change the executive or the board, or the shareholders are going to shut you down. So there is a real existential threat to non-performance. So the reason you don't nationalize institutions that need to perform is because the way our government is built is not for it to be built on performance. There are those who will say, yes, but in China, all right, let's go down this route. In China, they have, ports run by the government and mega cities, and they're doing exceptionally well. And look at their growth rate. Yes, that's true. Have you read any of the Communist Party manifestos? Have you watched any of the conferences that they publish online?
So people are fearful that the economy will collapse and that will drive away an international investment. People are fearful that with the corruption, the history of corruption that our government has, the running of the country in this way will only bring worsening conditions for the citizens of South Africa.
This is part 3 of the series where we're looking at different political parties and their policies. Today we're looking at the EFF's policies. A lot of the times people do question because of how they do things and the extremist measures they do sometimes go to, especially when it comes to the expropriation of land without compensation. Now this goes against Section 25 of the Constitution, which claims that no one is allowed to be dispossessed of their land arbitrarily so without necessary compensation. Now, in order to achieve this, the EFF would need at least 3/4 of the members in the National Assembly to take a vote against against this bill and to take a vote to amend and change this bill. So it's very difficult to try and change and go against anything that is in the constitution already. It's difficult to ascertain whether the EFF would be able to execute all of these policies, which literally promote equality on a whole new level compared to other governmental policies and party policies. It would be very difficult to see that because they haven't really been given or seen in any major governmental roles, and they haven't been given that space or that room to execute their decisions effectively and for us to see what they would actually do if they were in power. So as good as the EFF's policies may seem, we need to be sure that they will be able to execute it and not be corrupt and actually prioritize the well-being of the entire country. You know, words are good, but actions are better.
And moving on to the next party, ANC. And this one is self-explanatory. I feel like we can see the effects, we can see the service, we can see the condition of the country under the rule of the ANC. I don't want to go into this one because I think the most popular problem that most people have with the Patriotic Alliance is the fear of the bringing back of the death penalty. I know this is not the only thing that the policy states, but the thing that's making the most noise about when the PA is mentioned is the death penalty. They want to bring back the death penalty. Sorry, my video cut there, but essentially people are fearful of the Patriotic Alliance implementing the death penalty in our corrupt government, because what we have experienced in the past in Apartheid is that when the death penalty is used in a corrupt government, innocent people die, and people are fearful that if this is brought back with the government that we already have, it's just gonna bring just a terrible state. You know what I'm saying? So that is the main fear. I know this is not the only policies of the PA. If you want to read up on it, you can read up on it. There's also an interview done by Penuel where he interviewed Gayton McKenzie, and they spoke about the policies of the Patriotic Alliance, so you can go watch that as well. Another fear that South Africans have for the newer parties with Rise South Africa and Action SA is that it's not necessarily, the fear is not in their policy, but it is more in the fact that they are allegedly funded by white capital, by white monopoly. And now the fear that people have is that in the past we have seen in the ruling of the ANC that white monopoly essentially can control government operations, and things are done in the white monopoly's favor because they are the ones that carry the funds, they're the ones that get the last say. It is their money that is being used, whereas we need to focus on redistributing that wealth that the white monopoly has. So now people are scared that we are only going to get worse because they are being controlled by the wealthiest of the wealthy. And then there are other parties. I mean, there's a lot of other parties that I don't know their policies. One that has come to my attention is Rise South Africa. I'm not sure exactly what their policies are because they are very new, but I think the way that the leader Mpho Dagada is going about spreading his intentions for the country, I really agree with how he's going about it. Like, he has a YouTube channel where he educates us as South Africans about, you know, the mining industry, about scandals and where they rooted from, he has an interview with Penuel where he goes and he explains the incidents in the Zondo Commission. I don't even know what that is. Let me just start there. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that implies and what implications that leaves for, South Africans. But he goes into it and he explains, and I appreciate that it's getting explained for the youth on channels which the youth use, like social media. That is where we are, and I feel it's important that people who have platforms use your platforms to inform the South Africans, the young South Africans, of politics in South Africa, so that we don't just think we are floating around, hey, there's nothing we can do about government. There's things we can do. There's ways in which we can implement change. It's just that we need to be well educated, and there are people out there that are educating people, that are spreading knowledge the way that it needs to be spread. And I'd like to link those people down below, the people that I have learned from. There are podcasts, there are people like Dan Koda that are using social media to get politics outside of just traditional news stations, that politics must be discussed by the youth, with the youth, so we understand what is happening. We understand that when people are in parliament, what are the discussions that are happening? Why are people sleeping in the parliament? What does that mean for us? You know what I'm saying? So we need to understand all these things. And yeah, like, my video is just to essentially get you to start thinking about these things, because you, my darling, are the future of this country. So you need to understand the context of South Africa. You need to understand that maybe the things that worked for the Western world will not work for South Africa, because we have gone through apartheid and we have serious problems with wealth distribution, with poverty, with, and maybe the systems that work in China will not work for us, because our government is not the same as the Chinese government, and the discipline is not the same. So we need to think about these things, and start to think about when you put the X by the ballot paper. Like, also the fact that our voting is still on paper. We are in freaking 2024, guys. There's AI. Why are we writing on a piece of paper? Why are we still following lines outside? Like, it's crazy to me. And I think this narrative was also brought into my mind by Mpho Dagada, explaining that the world is moving forward. We have technologies that can solve problems that we take months to try to solve. He was explaining that in our country, we have problems with Eskom. If you were to ask AI, if you were to ask a chatbot, what are the steps that we need to solve the poverty in our country, AI could probably give you the answers. It could probably give you the answers. We have freaking blockchain technology that could stop corruption. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like people need to start getting involved and stop letting old people who don't understand technology and the progression of the world to lead us, because we have the power to lead, guys. We literally do have the power to lead, and we are knowledgeable and we can. So stop. Groove. Okay, don't leave groove. Groove is nice, guys, but groove and be informed. You know what I'm saying? Groove and know about the political injustices that are being done to you on a daily. As a person who is trying to acquire funding for your studies, understand why it is that you and your family are not as economically set up as your white counterparts. Why is it that your white friends can go travel internationally while us as black people just stay in the country and don't get to explore the world? There's reasons behind those things, and you must go and inform yourself. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little video essay. This is not the type of content I'll be making on a regular, because I am not very much politically inclined, but I feel it was important that I have a session and I do speak about it, you know, because I have made analysis on my own and I feel it's important. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you are registered to vote. Please register, because your one vote could change the vote from 50% to 49. You know what I'm saying? You could literally change the state of our country just with your one vote. And it doesn't matter who your vote goes to. Choose one party that you wouldn't mind if their policies came to real life. This thing stopped again. But anyways, with that said, with everything that I said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was informing, and I hope you were able to learn something new, and that you will register to vote, because we need your vote and we need change in this country. We cannot live the same way we've been living ever since Apartheid left the country. We need change, we need growth. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe, please leave a like and share with anyone who needs to hear this. And yeah, with love from Assy. Bye guys.